Hi everyone, thank you for coming and staying as well. Yeah, I'm here to talk about a new exciting e-commerce platform, Sylius, who's been around for 5 years, called Sylius. So you don't have to use Magento anymore. So Sylius is e-commerce for business. MIT license, free in all the senses. There's commercial support available from Luckion. Pavel's not paying me to say that. It's also e-commerce for developers, unlike Magento. Modular decoupled. We use Beham PHP spec to help separate concerns between different classes, components, bundles, etc. And because of that, we have clean, flexible code. We adhere to as many PSR standards as possible. The pull request reviews, etc., which are really intense, by the way. And it's all done on Symfony, of course. We're still using 2.7. There is work to upgrade that. The application behavior itself is tested with BHAT, so the classes themselves are tested with PHP spec. The whole application with BHAT. There's a guy who works there at Doctrine. He's looking to rewrite the whole BHAT suite. Some might argue that's not really PDD, you've already got that code written, but I think at that point they're still trying to figure out what Sylius is supposed to do. We use Bootstrap 3 on the front end. By front end I mean the store and the application itself. Personally I prefer Foundation, but Bootstrap's cool. Yeah, it's a full stack web API, so it supports based course. I don't know why the hell you want to use XML, but that's available. And that allows you not just to use the default front end, but you can also bring your own front end. Whether that's a web application, you know, like one that built in Angular or React, or if it's an iPhone app, etc. The API itself is tested with PHP unit because it seems more straightforward to do. It's massive. There's 41 standalone Symfony bundles and counting. When I first created this, that number was already out of date. I have to update it quickly before starting this talk. Of course, installable by Composer, highly configurable, so we try and expose as much of the different options as we can to the config.yaml. Supports Symfony 2.7 plus. I'm not sure that plus is actually correct. Let's double check that. Because Symfony 3 development is a work in progress. This guy's running his own deprecation fixer. He's going to try and fix those. Although I reckon he should do it bundle by bundle. Yep, there's of course a solution for PHP, so you don't have to have a Symfony application. You can just install the components that you need. You can use it with Laravel, anything. You need a minimum requirement of PHP 5.5. It does work in PHP 7. And at the moment, there's some work to do like integration testing between different classes. All the PHP spec for isolation and behavior of the classes is done there. To me, Sylius is like a load of Lego pieces. This isn't actually Lego. This is though. You can build your own store. It doesn't have to be a store, it can be something else. So, back in 2011, Pavel created the first commit to Sylius. At the time, there were only a couple of bundles. But now, there are over 72 packages, which include bundles and components. And this diagram I also had to quickly update as well, because 8 of these are new in the last 2 weeks. So when you start as a Symfony developer, resource, this is the most single important part of Sylius. It's the bread and butter of Sylius. The idea is to try and reduce as much repetitiveness and duplication as possible. So you have your business models, but you need like controllers and routing, API, forms, etc. But it's not an admin generator because that's just too much and drive me nuts. So it's designed to try and make your life as easy as possible and not boring at the same time as well. So CRUD operations are generated automatically, as is REST API generation. I will show you that in a moment. Routes are generated. Forms are not yet generated. There is work to do that soon. But they will be registered, so if we adhere to a certain pattern, it will know where to look for the form. The same goes for translatables. So you have an entity called post, you need another entity called post translation, and it will know to look for that. And then using a package called a2lix form translatable, I forget what it's called, but it will look for all the translatable records in your database, your repository, and will allow you to create new ones or edit those, etc. automatically. Validation is easy to assign. You can use Doctrine, MongoDB, or ORM, that's up to you. ORM is better supported though, and there is work not to actually use Doctrine at all. So, to install it, Composer, wait ages, eventually that happens. Then you register these 5 bundles, including resource, of course. So REST, Sylius, page advancer for pagination, Bazinga hiatus for documentation, I think. Oh, is it? Alright. So, to create it, you need to implement resource interface. Unless you actually extend the resource bundle, in which case you don't have to do that. And then, define your Doctrine mapping. You register it in app config YAML. And then you use routing. Now, this bit's confusing because at the moment resource only supports a string, so you have to have like YAML within YAML. Your dog will hope you like YAML. So going back to that previous slide, the type resource API, it will just generate the API for you. If you do root and debug, you'll get these. That's it. You have a CRUD API ready to use immediately. How cool is that? You can start using it straight away. You use the Symfony built-in server, then post it, and then if you call the resource, you should have your tracks. You can verify its existence in the database. So let's change the config, because we don't want just the REST API, we want forms and pages that we can actually look at. Okay, so we've changed the type from Sylius resource API to Sylius resource. We've added the templates. There's a namespace to find where those templates are. And then you create these 4 views. As I mentioned, I like Foundation, so I'm going to quickly use that. Just it's in the index. Now, the whatever you name the resource, that's the twig variable that will be injected, so it tracks, and that's automatically pluralized. And that's what it looks like. I showed the Symfony toolbar just to prove that it's actually working. Now, more often than not, you probably have an admin side that you want to edit, and then there's things you want to expose to the public. That can be done as well. Use a combination of section and either only or except. So only will just show those views, show an index. Except might be edit and create. Now, resource component, because it's the most important part of Sylius, it's the best documented. Unlike the rest of Sylius, which isn't very well documented. Okay, so I'm now going to move on to something else. Report. This is probably my favourite part of Sylius, as well as resource. So, when people do reports, they kind of do the same thing over and over again. Here, we're trying to simplify that. So, you fetch the report resource, or entity or model from the repository, you pass that to the data fetcher. So, whatever that resource is configured with, the data fetcher is configured with, you pass it to that. That will generate a data object. So, the data object will contain the formatted data and some other like context configuration that you might need to pass to the renderer. The renderer's responsibility is to take that data object and render the output, which is a string, a formatted string. It can be HTML, JSON, TSV if you're familiar with the D3 library. SVG, oh, it's a tab separated format. It's like CSV. Or even console output, because the idea is that you can use this report anywhere. So, in the simplest form, that's what it looks like, the flow. But if we go in more in detail, it looks like that. Because each report is configured with a data fetcher and renderer, you need to know which one to get from the Symfony container. So you have to have like a delegating data fetcher and a delegating renderer in order to actually get the right one without hard coding things or just making it less reusable. So this is a company I used to work at, Wireless Logic. They have a Symfony web application called SymPro. It manages like loads of SIM cards for different businesses. Usually often used in the Internet of Things or machine to machine. Like, you know when you go on a bus and it has like Route 25 to Oxford Circus? Well, it only knows where it is because it's probably a SIM card. And that SIM card's probably being managed by SymPro. So clients more will probably want to know how much usage their SIM is using, or which ones are active, or what's the best performing SIM. So I created these data fetchers and renderers. So you have one for different types. GPRS, which is like internet data, SMS and voice. But then you probably don't just want that information. You probably want all of it, or we only want the top 10. Where we don't want to be stuck to a specific render as well. So you can have like a bar chart or a pie chart. But then we may not want to use high charts anymore. We might want to use D3, for example. Or we want to show that information in the command line. So that's why you create all these different renders. The idea is that you can mix and match. And then your actual report entity will determine which one to use. And then you can use it anywhere, the home page, a dashboard page, or any other pages that you have in your application. Registry. So ResourceBundle actually uses the registry component. Registry is like a more stricter version of the Symfony container. I'm going to show you why we need to use it. So take this code for example. We only know at runtime what type of usage we want to import. So we're trying to, we have a cron job that imports the usage every day or so. But we have this dynamic controller, service key. The problem with that is the service may not be defined, or the service may not be of the correct type. So you probably expect a class of a certain instance, but it returns something else. And the other issue is that it's fully dependent on the service container. So to solve this problem, we have this interface, usage importer. We declare that as the type that we want in the service registry. And then we add those by an alias. And if we try and put the wrong one in, it'll throw an exception. So when we know at the time that the application first starts that there's a problem, but then finding out later, and then customers complaining, why doesn't my sim have any usage? Yeah, so then you inject that service registry into a universal importer. So it's not just command line, you can use it anywhere else. Yeah, it's easier. So in our command line, we can simplify the logic that's in there. We just run the import. We know we've got the right type that we want, and everything should work. Always. Now, this is the most complex part of Sylius in terms of models, product. So there's loads of different attributes. There's attributes, options, taxonomy, zoning, etc. So I'm going to explain how all that works in the other different components that report product depends on. Variation and attribute. The difference between variation and attribute. Attribute is just an arbitrary value, so what type of, like say you have a car, you want to know how much mileage it has, that would be an attribute. Whereas an option might be, what colour does the car come in? There's only a certain set that's possible. We'll focus on option. So product can contain many options, and those options are assigned to certain option values. And here's an actual example. So a t-shirt has colour and size. Colour has either blue or green, size large, medium and small. How many variations are there? 6. Yep. 2 colours and 3 sizes, 6 variations. This is done by Cartesian product. I'll explain why I put that there. So, variable interface, that'll be the product. If you pass that into the generator, it will use your set builder to try and determine how many variations need to be generated for this variable. And then you get your set. So in the example product, you pass in your Cartesian set builder to the product generator and product, and then you get the set of colours and sizes. And you can base it with something else. It doesn't have to be that. Okay, archetype. So product is an archetype. The origins of this were that I needed to use something that was like product, but not specifically Sylius product. So that I could have different options and variations. So that this is probably often solved by using a schemaless database like MongoDB. The problem is, it's not explicit, that you can't do any proper validation on it, or you're not sure what fields should exist. So we need something in between a relational database and a document database. So something that's kind of available at runtime. Martin Fowler has more information on this problem, like different ways that you might solve this. So adding different fields to the database, but it's a bit cumbersome. Embedding it, but then it's not easy to get at that data or do queries on it. You can have an attribute table, which is kind of the solution that Archetype tries to go for. So you can have your ad hoc schemas like this. So archetypes are inheritable. So an example of that would be a car on the vehicle. And the motorbike would extend for a vehicle as well. And then you have your product that's based on that archetype, so a BMW. And the thing about attributes and options, you can reuse them between different archetypes as well. So the vehicle might have a model attribute. And how you use this outside of Sylius. An example might be a blog where you have different content types. If you're familiar with Drupal or WordPress, probably do something like that. Maybe not. Now there's a listener in Sylius that will automatically update these archetypes and the objects that are generated from them. So if you add a new option to your vehicle archetype, that will cascade down to all the instances or records in the database that are of that type. Problem is, that only works with Sylius product. So I'm doing some work at the moment to try and make that used by all archetypes. Storage. So arbitrary accesses for storage. Take this example. We're using the session to capture the affiliate. But then, what if you don't want to use session? Or if we use session, what if we want to use a different session back so we don't have conflicts? So then you have to go and try and rewrite the code. The other is to use storage, so you can choose what type of storage it is. Session, PLS6, Doctrine cache, cookie, Redis, PDO. Then that different type of storage. That's the interface for it. It's very simple, it's very familiar, like parameter bag and Symfony. So then we just inject storage and then call the necessary methods. I realise those methods are wrong. Should be set data, get data, but yeah, you get the concept. So Sylius has session storage and Doctrine cache storage by default. You can implement your own, so one that adheres to PS.6, for example, like this one. Flow bundle. Now, Flow bundle has its own storage, but it doesn't use that one, so that might change. In most applications, you probably have like a wizard. So you want to go from one page, and then go to the next one. Do your thing like filling in form, wherever, go to the next one. Otherwise, you go back to the original form that happened. I've got a joke for you guys. Why did the Mexican push his wife off the cliff? So, you're familiar with how you take tequila? We're going to use this as an example for how flow bundle works. So they all extend this abstract control step. So, implement the display action in your abstract control step. That's what happens when you first land on the very first step, and the other steps. And if that's okay, implement your forward action to determine whether or not to proceed. And then you build a scenario. So you define the order in which this happens. Now this is very linear. Most applications probably have a workflow. Now, in order for this to work, you need to tag it as a Sylius process scenario, give it an alias, then you access that in your templates using that alias. So you can go back or proceed. Now, for more complicated ones, you can tag scenarios instead of this. So you can tag steps rather than scenarios. This is useful because if you have a workflow or finite state machine, you need to know on what conditions to actually go ahead and move to the next step or go to another stage. So, tag scenarios for linear flow, tag steps for workflow or finite state machine usage. Scenarios can be skipped. Steps can be skipped within scenarios if they don't apply, like signing in if you're already signed in. And this is used in Sylius for the checkout stages. So, fill in your bank details or confirming these bank details work, and then you get your confirmation order. Cool. User. Now, one of the most controversial parts of Sylius is that they used to use false user bundle. Pretty much everyone who uses Symfony probably uses that bundle. But they decided to rip that out and create their own. The main reason for that is that customers are not users, or they're two different things. So the user bundle was created to separate these two concerns. The user contains things related to security, like passwords. So OAuth, or like Facebook and Twitter, Amazon login, or when they last logged in. A customer contains things personal to them, like their age, and their name, address, etc. So the guy who created the pull request, that was the reasons he gave for separating the two. Kind of makes sense. Actually, it does make sense. The problem with false user bundle is they didn't quite allow for that flexibility. Addressing. So the addressing model is quite simple. Has a name, a phone, company, all the usual details. Examples of that are like billing and shipper's address for your order. There's zoning in the addressing bundle. So if you have a DVD that's restricted to a certain zone, you can assign that to your product. Country and province. So example of that would be London and Kent in the UK. It only goes up to that level. So if you need something else, like boroughs or different districts within those, you probably need to extend that. This is a project that I was working on for a long time. It uses Sylius, but it's not a e-commerce shop. It's a classified ads project. So there I needed to have a new one called municipality. I did that by extending the Sylius properties and adding the new fields for municipality. Then the municipality are depended on the Sylius properties. And then in the configuration, I can override Sylius models. So if you need something very specific to your domain, you can do that quite easily from the config and just give it a fully qualified constant. And then you can use it. So the municipality had to be assigned to advertisements, classified ads that you post on this site. Taxonomy. Yep, just categorized hierarchy with categorization. There's a root taxon for every taxonomy. You can assign multiple taxons to those taxons. And then whatever object you want to have tagged with the taxon should implement taxon's aware interface. And they can be shared. The taxon's aware is basically as many taxons, and they don't have to be in the same taxon. They can be different taxonomies. Examples of that: category and brand. And the shoe product has the categories leather, shoes, and the brand Reese. Translation and locale. Translation, the translatable models that you have ought to be automatically be translated based on the locale that's been detected. There are two different models for that and components. But the locale component, sorry, the translation component will be merged into the resource bundle because it's easier to manage the translations by defining your resource rather than it separately. Sequence. So when you have a new order, you probably don't want to rely on a database DB to generate an identifier for that. You probably need something to create a number there or identifier. And that identifier might have lead and zeros, so a database ID is probably not suitable for that. Inventory is self-explanatory. You can have your products, but you need to know if they're out of stock or not, or where they're located. Payment. Now, the Sylius payment just provides the model for that, and the controllers. In terms of payment solutions, that's provided by a library called Payment. A payment model looks like this. So the subject might be an order. The payment is like well, it's not a receipt. It's more the process in which the payment should take place or has taken place. Payment source might be how you wish to pay. That's different from payment method, which is the library that you're using to do the payment. So examples of this the order that you're paying via Stripe and the credit card is out. These are the supported gateways for Payment. I believe it also integrates with OmniPay as well. I'm not sure, I'll double check on that. Promotion. So promotion has this model. Promotions are assigned to a subject, so products in most cases. And then there's different rules. Rules can have multiple actions. So, given the promotion 3 for the price of 2, you need to check if has been discounted already. So, you know, you go to a shop and they say, oh no, this offer only applies to items that are not discounted. So you exclude those from the promotion. Then you check if there's 3 or more. Divide by 3. Discount the cheapest X amount. The promotion flow looks like this. So you pass in your subject to the processor, you check if it's eligible for any promotions. And then the checker will go through each of those rules, see if they apply. Then the applicator will add those adjustments. Pricing. That one's really complicated. I don't have time to go into that. Originator. This one's quite tricky for me to understand, but there was a use case for it. So imagine the promotion has discount adjustments applied to it, and then you go to the order and it has all these other adjustments. You need to know where did the adjustment come from, like what was responsible for that adjustment. So the originator's job is to try and leave a trace of what happened. Serious development, going near the end of the talk. Tools for the job. If you're familiar with Symfony directory structure, that's what it looks like. But Symfony 3 directory structure introduces a new var directory, but we don't use that in Sylius. We do use bin though, because we run PHP spec. We have other tools. But then we also introduce a new directory, kind of mimicking units, etc. Etc. contains etc. contains all those things that don't quite fit in the source code, but are needed to help do the development or set up the project. So we have all these different bhat suites and profiles are separated in the bhat directory. PHP CS, these are these scripts that run on the Travis build. There's specific tools that we need to run on Travis to do the testing properly and make it fast. Vagrant, of course, and AppVal, which is Windows continuous integration, just like Travis. And then there's Docker, which is coming soon. There's one guy at Doctrine who's just solely working on making Travis run faster for Sylius. And he's done quite a really good job at it. One of the most interesting things is the test kernel, which attempts to reduce memory usage by cleaning up after itself and shut down. That's it. Thanks for listening. Any questions?
How's the roadmap looking like in terms of beta phase and what are users
The question was, what does the roadmap look like in terms of releasing beta or going to 1.0? These goals seem to be shifted all the time. I know there's a feature freeze coming up, and I believe they're looking to at least have alpha in the next 6 months or so. Peter, do you know more information about this?
They were aiming for April, but I think that's pretty ambitious. There's a lot of quite rapid development going on right now, but I would expect it by kind of summertime, I think, for the first day release. They're going through this phase of trying to rip apart everything so they don't have any responsibility for PC breaks like later on. So I think they've looked at Symfony as a model, and now Fabian's had this nightmare of all the PC breaks for 3 years. And they just want to say, let's try and get as much of the foundations exactly as we want them now, because it has been a kind of evolving project.
Cool, thank you. Anyone?
The documentation is a bit limited on a lot of the modules. Is there anything happening to improve that? For example, the Sylius search module.
Yes. The search bundle was kind of rushed, so I think documentation on that would be quite sparse. Also, I noticed when I try to submit changes to Sylius documentation, it does take forever for it to get merged, or most times it doesn't get merged at all. So there's only so much someone can do. I hope it does improve though.
Performance-wise, have you ever tested against larger data sets, large catalog, or a lot of variations?
We're using the full stack Sylius in Reese. It's a high street program chain for not familiar with it. And we imported the old catalog into there, and it does run very fast. There's a lot of work that's been done on that platform to try and make it.
How many products were in the old catalogue?
100,000?
Yeah, 100,000. Yeah.
Is this project aiming at being a competitor to something like Magento, or is Magento a different audience?
Good question. I thought yes and no. So yes, because in terms of competitors to Magento, there aren't really that many that are quite serious or use on a larger scale. No, because it's trying to do something different. It's not necessarily trying to do everything that Magento does. It's trying to offer an alternative, and then you can decide which one you want to use. Where you think Magento is more suitable, especially because it's been around for a lot longer, or if you're happy to go with all the breaking changes that happen during development of Sylius, but you know this will lead to something much better in the future.
There's some talk about using this not for e-commerce. Like, are there any live products using that? Like,
which product?
Like, are there any examples of that? Like, you mentioned briefly just in the description on the meetup about using this not for e-commerce, like using the models and stuff.
Oh yeah. So that example I showed you about the sim management platform, that was one case where I did actually use Sylius reporting to help with that. Then there's a couple of open source projects I'm working on in my own time. Still work in progress that are using these. And then Pavel also mentioned about there's architecture companies selling different 3D computer graphic models, and they use some of the components and bundles for their site, but they're not using the whole of Sylius.
Okay, so you can pick and choose which parts of it you want to use, and on top of Symfony?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Cheers. Anyone?
Yeah, can I just ask who here is using some of the bundles for Sylius? Is there anyone here using it?
I've used the whole.
Okay. Yeah, we're just using things like, I think there's a couple of bundles like the tax bundle and something else in ours. But yeah, I was just interested to see how many people.
Oh, nice.
All right.
Cool, thanks very much.